Hi, I'm Mac Taylor with the Legislative Analyst's Office, and this is a brief overview of the California state budget. With any budget, whether it's your own family's budget, or a business, or a government, you're really talking about two things: money coming in, money going out. So with the state's budget, let's start first with the revenues. The state has two basic types of accounts. One is the general fund, but the state also has what are called special funds. But let's start with the general fund because this is the most important one of the state. Each year the state raises over $90 billion in revenues, and it comes from three basic tax sources. The most important is the personal income tax, which raises about half of our money. The personal income tax is paid by most people on their salaries, on their wages, but also on things like their interest income or if they have a rental property. There are certain businesses who also pay under the personal income tax. These are partnerships or relatively small businesses. So that's the really important source of the state's income. The second piece is the sales tax. The sales tax is levied on physical goods, whether you buy a book or a can of paint at the hardware store, or more importantly for the state, when you buy a car. It's just because that's such an expensive item. Now, the sales tax does not apply to services, so that when you hire an accountant or a lawyer or you have someone to come out to your house to fix the sink, you don't pay on that labor that they provide, that service that they provide to you. The sales tax is an interesting one in that it not only has money going into the general fund, it also has money going into our state special funds, and it also provides monies for local governments. The third big tax is the corporation tax, and this is levied by businesses on their net profits from their activities within California. The state also collects a variety of other income from the insurance tax, from fines, from penalties. But most people talk about the big three taxes: the personal income, the sales, and the corporate, because they raise well over 90% of our income. The mix of those big three taxes has changed rather dramatically over time. 40 years ago, the personal income tax was a little bit over a quarter of our revenues. The sales tax was much more important. That situation has changed dramatically. Currently, the personal income tax is half of our revenues, and the sales tax is much less important. This is for a couple of reasons. First of all, because the state's economy is much more geared towards services, and we don't tax those under sales tax, it's become proportionally less important. And the personal income tax has become more important as capital gains income, what the state gets in taxation when people have profits off their stocks or they sell a home. That has really grown rapidly over the last few decades. Now let's turn to special fund revenues. These aren't as important in that they raise only about a fourth as much as our general fund. About 2/3 of special fund revenues are tax revenues. The most important being car-related taxes. Every time you go to the pump, each gallon of gasoline you pay some piece to the state. You also pay taxes when you register your car every year, both in registration fees and vehicle license fees. The state also collects special fund revenues in the sales taxes, as we mentioned. These are dedicated towards local governments and to pay off bonds that were approved several years ago. We also have special fund taxes receipts that we get from cigarette taxes and from a 1% surcharge on high-income taxpayers. We also have a lot of non-tax revenues in our special funds. These are primarily regulatory fees that an individual might pay if they were being licensed as a contractor or a nurse or a doctor, and many businesses pay related to the regulation of air and water quality. All right, well, that's the income side of the budget. Now let's look at how we spend that revenue. First of all, focusing on the general fund. The single biggest area that the state spends money on is in education. K-12 education, kindergarten through 12th grade, is the biggest portion of that education piece. We send a lot of money down to local governments, local school districts, and it typically comes in two kind of pots. One is a large general purpose pot where the school districts can spend that money however they wish. The state also sends money down for what are called categorical programs, and these are just special purposes where the schools have to spend money for things like special education or class size reduction. Higher education also is an important state function. This consists of payments for our University of California, for our California State University, and also for our community colleges. The community colleges are kind of interesting in that they're thought of as higher education, and yet their funding is linked with K-12 under a proposition that the voters passed in 1988 called Proposition 98. Other important pieces of the budget, however, are health, and the single biggest program in the health area is for Medi-Cal, which provides health services to low-income and disabled Californians. We also spend money, however, on mental health services and on developmental services. Social services is another important area of the state. These are welfare benefit payments to low-income and disabled people. It also provides services to seniors and for child welfare services. And the last really big piece of our budget is in criminal justice, where we spend money for the Department of Corrections in order to house felons in 33 penal institutions and also to pay for the court system. Now, most state spending in the general fund is actually in a category that we call local assistance. And what that means is that we send most of our money down to local governments, whether they're school districts or counties. About 30% of the budget is in what is called state operations, or what many people would think of as the state bureaucracy. There are 4 big areas in state operations: the Department of Corrections that we just mentioned, the 2 university systems, and the money that we pay for debt service. Let's turn to special fund spending. As we said, money raised that is put in special funds has to be spent on particular purposes. Health and social services is the single biggest area, and that's based on the sales taxes and the 1% surcharge on personal income that are levied for mental health, and the sales tax which is spent on various local health and social services programs. Transportation is another really large area of special fund spending, and that again is taking those gas tax monies that you pay at the pump or those registration fees, and those are typically spent for such purposes as repairing and maintaining our state and local roads, for paying for the Department of Motor Vehicles, and for the California Highway Patrol. In the resources area, it's basically the spending of those regulatory fees that businesses and individuals pay in order to regulate, again, air quality, water quality. So we've looked at both the income side and we've looked at the revenue side. And with any budget, you want to try to link them up and try to keep yourself in balance. In fact, the state has a constitutional requirement when the budget is passed each year that revenues at least equal what we plan on spending. Now, in recent years, the state has had a pretty tough time of both getting its budget in balance and keeping its budget in balance. And that's for a variety of reasons. Back in 2001, when we had the dot-com bust, the state lost a lot of revenues. We got behind, and we've had a hard time kind of catching up ever since. The state has used a lot of temporary solutions that may help get the budget in balance in one year, but they go away and you're faced with a problem in the next year. And of course, beginning with 2008, we started feeling the dramatic effect of the Great Recession, the deepest downturn in the California economy since the Great Depression. So the state is still struggling now to get its budget in balance and to keep it there. That's our brief overview of the state budget. For more information on state programs, please visit our website at lao.ca.gov. 2 documents in particular may be of interest to you. One is our California Spending Plan, which comes out in the fall of each year and summarizes the budget that was just passed by the legislature for that current fiscal year. And the other document is our Fiscal Outlook, which comes out in mid-November of each year. And that kind of kicks off the budget process for the coming fiscal year by updating revenues and spending and providing our forecast for the years after that to inform the legislature and the public of the state's fiscal situation. Thank you for watching.